Yeah. Okay. Good morning. All right, I'm going to get started here. I apologize. There's not enough room here, but hopefully we'll make do. I apologize for that. For those of you here in Dallas and those of you listening and watching wherever you happen to be in the world, welcome to the MVS program opening and keynote. I'm Ed Jaffe from Phoenix Software International, and I am the managing the MVS program here in Dallas. To get started, I like to define MVS. We actually had a new tenure person who came there, I think it was in 2018 or 2019, and said, what is this MVS thing they're talking about? And someone gave them a very friendly, helpful answer that MVS is this decades old operating system, and these guys are still living in the past. And I said, well, first of all, that's a terrible answer. And secondly, absolutely wrong. If you go out to IBM's site right here, I'm on the brand new IBM documentation. And I looked up MVS, and it is a collection of books, 61 very, very important books. I think MVS may be the largest single collection of books in ZOS. I'm not sure about that. And they actually have a definition, right? If I can make that thing actually work. That says that it provides the essential operating system services of ZOS, includes the IO control program, ZOS Unix services kernel, and ZOS XML system services. Well, of course, we know it has a lot more than that. It is the core of the operating system. It's also called the BCP or base control program. It's the foundation upon which ZOS, everything on ZOS depends. So my rule of thumb is if it's not database, languages, security, middleware, networking, or applications, it's probably MVS. All right. So if that fits your description of where you'd like to be, you're in the right room. Our areas of interest, our program is concerned with broad spectrum of mainframe-related topics that provide in-depth exploration of IBM's flagship business platform. We focus on this long list: function, performance, installation, configuration, service, management, problem diagnosis, future directions, and tactical and strategic positioning of IBM Z processors, attached peripherals, ZOS operating system, and beyond. So there's a lot of scope here. The organization of our program is like this. We have two program managers. Skip Robinson's not here in Dallas. Three project managers, three IBM reps, and a Broadcom rep to the program. Then we have three projects underneath that: the MVS Core Technologies Project, the MVS Storage Project, and the MVS Performance Project, each of which has, you can see there a list of deputy project managers, project officers, etc. So we have a total of 38 volunteers and 24 strategic partner representatives. And by the way, that makes us the largest program at Share. They should have given us a larger room. Okay, again, that's a mistake. So the folks that are the MVS program officers, me, Skip Robinson, who's not here. James Lund is our back there, waving his hand. He's a project manager of MVS Core. Russell Witt from Broadcom right there, project manager of MVS Storage. Meryl Temmel from Turkey, Bank of Turkey, she's right there. She's our MVS Performance project manager. Then our IBM reps, our lead IBM rep is Mr. Steve Warren. Many of you know him. A new one, new ad right here is Marie Romero. Where's Marie Romero? There she is. Very good. She is now our IBM development liaison, and she's taking the place of John Petroshak, who moved up and took Scott Engelman's place as now the ZOS Principal Product Manager. Thank you. It's like a Peter Piper. Anyway, so John, we're glad that John is still here and part of our whole group. He's just changed jobs. Actually, now he's kind of like the top dog over there. So I'm glad that we have a good relationship. And not to leave Broadcom out, Russell Witt does dual duty as our lead program rep from Broadcom. Okay, so we're well represented there. This week, I asked the project managers to nominate must-see sessions. I have nothing to do with it, just in case you happen to see my name up there. And of course, these are the must-see sessions. If you notice on Monday at 9:15, there's two that are running at the same time. Must-see two sessions running at the same time. If that didn't happen, you wouldn't be at Share. Okay. And those are the DFSMS, freebies, hidden gems, continuous delivery, things like that. Also the what's new in ZOS, the big D edition. Gary Pushkoff doing that. Then we have the exact same problem at 10:30, two side-by-side sessions. Once again, if we didn't have that, it wouldn't be Share. One of them is cloud storage use cases for everyone, and the other one is introduction to Z processor measurements from the performance folks. And then after that, it breaks up and gets a little bit easier. On Tuesday at 10:30, we have machine learning applied to ZOS from SMF records, which is pretty cool. And then we have DFSMS tape operations and all the explanation of everything that goes along with that, diagnosis, etc. Tuesday, we also have introducing IBM Change Tracker, which is a brand new product. I know nothing about that. It sounds pretty cool though. And Marna Wally, I believe, is going to be doing that one. And then we have the next steps of ZCX container, where they're talking about the OpenShift changes that they're making there. So that's going to be exciting too. And last but not least, Wednesday at 9:15 is yours truly discussing JES 3 Plus IO improvements. How I got on the list here, I don't know, but I'm quite happy about it. All right. So anyway. And the type here is really small, and I can't really turn like this, so I apologize for squinting like that. But anyway, now these are just highlighted sessions. There are so many sessions this week that are great, not just in this program, but there's many other programs that are represented here in Dallas. This is actually a compressed version. Normally, we'd have even more programs represented, and they will be in Columbus. We have blogs, and one of the most popular ones, in fact, the most popular one, is Marna's Musings. So wherever Marna Wally is, thank you very much for having such a great blog on the Share site. I don't see her because it was too crowded. She decided to. But it's the new site and the way that you get to this stuff is very cool. We also have an updated requirement system now, and that is how that you can help influence ZOS development through the requirements process. It's a way that Share votes independently and creates its own RFEs that are considered higher priority by IBM because Share has already vetted them, and there's multiple companies involved and things like that. So it's a very good process. And I recommend, if you're interested in it, come today at 4:45. There will be in Cumberland GH, I think it is, and the ZOS requirements meeting is there. IBM will go over the latest requirements, what their responses are, and maybe they'll be talking about new requirements that are going into the system. And maybe you want to become a part of that process. It's actually quite interesting. Okay, our presenters today, we intended to have Peter Fandel from Rocket Software, who was going to present on Zowe version 2. Peter missed his plane. He's not going to be in today until a little bit later. So we have in his place another one of his colleagues, whose name I can't fully pronounce. He's Lenny, and he's a very, very accomplished gentleman, and he'll let you know who he is. I'm sorry about that. And then John Shebey over here from ZOS Service. He'll be talking about the APARS of Death. And last but certainly not least, April Hickel, Vice President of Intelligent Z Strategy at BMC Software. She'll be giving our keynote and talking about their mainframe survey and the results of that and the strategic importance of that to the community. So with that, I just have a reminder, please submit a session eval at the end. But at this point, I'm going to switch over to Lenny's presentation, which I believe is this one. And there's the clicker.
All right. Thank you, Ed. So as you guys know, I am Lenny. I'll be taking over for Peter. I had about 6 hours to prepare for this presentation, including sleep. So let's get started. Also, my first Share presentation. So this... So this is going to be about V2, more specifically why you should care about it and the exciting features and extensible additions that we've added. So before we get into the bulk features, let's talk a little bit about how our process for version support has changed. We're doing major versions every 2 years. And now for the first time, Zowe V1 will be going into maintenance mode. Why this is huge, it's a really nice sign for Zowe maturity. And maintenance mode support, it'll continue for 2.5 years with critical fixes that'll come out quarterly. And we can see our schedule right there. So what do we focus on V2? Our priorities changed a little bit. On the left-hand side, we have our blue text. This is where we focused on things like high availability, containerization. We're still doing that in V2, but we added some more stuff. That's on our right-hand side, the green text. More specifically, we're focusing on consolidation of our configuration, improving the up and running experience, right? Don't want people to get confused. And the third one is performance. So let's jump into the features for V2. We have our CLI. First main point is the consolidation of the configuration. More specifically, sharing profiles, sharing team profiles, automatic team configuration. We also made the CLI quicker by introducing daemon mode, where basically just means node is running all the time. And also we have a security improvement for the core Zowe CLI package. On to the Explore, similar theme here, right? We're improving the, we're grouping together the configuration to make it easier. We have a core feature set, which is multi-selection, you know, selecting multiple data sets, our USS files and directories, job spooling, those kinds of things. And lastly, we have improved extensibility for APIs for the apps that are utilizing those APIs. Onto the mediation layer, huge stuff here. We have across the board UX improvements. So we have gone away from the previous mineral library that was there onto React material UI. I don't know if any React wizards here. And of course, we now have a new change password feature, which is really cool. Onto the app framework. This is really high value here, the version upgrades. What that means for us is that not only are we improving the existing features that Zowe framework in the desktop has, by upgrading the major library versions, you are improving the features that the apps are built on top of. So the vendors that are building those apps can now utilize the features of, you know, today's programming. We have server consolidation overall. This improves overhead. And of course, we now added 64-bit mode to ZSS. Why is that important? For better memory management and performance increases. Onto systems. This will be our last group here. We have a new ZWE utility. That's part of the consolidation part. What does that mean now? Instead of for our configuration, what you do to install, it'd be something like ZWE install, or to configure, you know, ZWE configure. It's a really neat utility, and that's going to really help the up and running. Some install and config improvements here. And lastly, we have a manifest file for components and extensions. That's about it for me. There are links up here for more V2 resources if need be. You guys don't really have to remember this. You can just search it up on Google or go on zowe.org. It'll have a nice, neat little summary of our changes. And that's about it for me. Thank you.
I don't like the fact that it was the.
All right, that's real dedication right there. Let me see if I can bring up the next one. There we go. All right, Mr. John Shebey.
Good morning. All right, so what I'm going to talk to you all about are some of the critical APARs since the last share. Now, hopefully everybody is on a regular basis using enhanced hold data to keep track of hypers and PEs, which is a recommendation. Okay, but what I'm going to highlight here are from talking with the various support teams, right? These are some of the hyper PE APARs that are the most critical, or as we always say, the APARs of death. All right, the first APAR I want to highlight here is an RSM, Real Storage Manager APAR, OA61960, right? This is a hyper APAR and it's also a PE fixing APAR. And who this affects are any of you that are running ZOS 2.4, okay, with PTF UJ05191, which is a PE PTF. And that PTF is part of a new function RSM APAR, okay, that was added in support of the 64-bit ZOS Unix memory map support. Okay, so we now allow you to do memory maps above the bar. So this was an RSM APAR in support of that. And this also affects you if you're running ZOS 2.5 because that RSM support and the 64-bit memory map support that it's for, those are all included with the base at 2.5. And the problem that can happen is there's a timing window where if you have outstanding div IO processing that's occurring, at the same time, if a swap out gets initiated, for example, a WLM unilateral swap, which is what the problem case was, you end up with the timing issue where you can end up with a deadlock, right? And basically the address space or address spaces that get affected, they end up in this state where they're indefinitely transitioning out of the system, right? So they never fully make it out. You can't cancel them. You might be able to get away with the force of the address space, right? But potentially you can end up having to IPL if you need to get rid of the address space out of the system. Okay, and this one fortunately is part of an RSU this year, right? RSU 2201. So I'd encourage you to all, if you don't have this PTF installed, go ahead and install that as soon as you can. The second APAR is a Hyper XCF APAR, OA62794. So at ZOS 2.5, right, there was support added to allow the CFRM coupled data set to be formatted for greater than 2048 structures, right? So that was added with 2.5. And there's also coexistence PTFs that go along with that, right, for ZOS 2.3 and 2.4 with APAR OA60356. So if you're exploiting, okay, if any of you are exploiting this new functionality and basically formatting the couple data set with greater than 2048 structures, you can end up, again, this is with the timing thing, particularly when a system's being taken down or partitioning out of the sysplex, you can end up with a partial write error, which leads to a loss of the couple data set. Okay, now, if you're unlucky and this happens to both your primary and your alternate, right, of course, and that type of rare, it might be rare, but it could happen, right? You can end up with a sysplex wide IPL, okay? And also, if you happen to format your couple data set for greater than 2048 structures, and let's say that becomes your primary couple data set, there's no way to back out and revert to a smaller couple data set without also doing a sysplex wide IPL, okay? And what this fix is actually going to do, or what the PTF is actually going to do, is we're actually backing out that support for greater than 2048. So when you install the PTF, you'll no longer be able, okay, to format the couple data set with greater than 2048. So a couple messages here are, if you haven't already, right, make sure you don't format the CDS with greater than 2048. Stay away from it. And of course, right, as with any sysplex thing, make sure you have redundancy, right? Make sure you always have your primary and your alternate. And if you ever, if you ever lose your primary and now your alternate becomes the primary, make sure you define a new alternate so that you don't ever end up in the case where you lose both of them. Okay. And if you have questions, Mark Brooks, I'm sure many of you know him from the Sysplex development team. He's doing a session, parallel Sysplex update on Wednesday. I know he's going to talk more about this issue too. Okay, red alerts. I'm happy to report that since last year there were none. Okay, so that was a quiet period. And just a few other quick service-related tidbits. And I know this has been advertised in many different channels and tech notes and flashes and even in cases. But at the end of August, okay, both unsecured and anonymous FTP, right, is going away when you want to upload your documentation, right? So the two changes are, first of all, plain unsecured FTP will no longer be supported, right, to test case and ECU rep, which are the primary doc servers. So what you want to make sure you're doing is that you're using secure transport protocols, right, like HTTP secure, FTPS, or SFTP, okay? And secondly, many of you probably use anonymous, right, to be able to log in and, upload or download things, right? But anonymous support is also going away for both the to IBM and the from IBM directory, all right? So what you need to do in place of that is make sure you have an IBM support file transfer ID, right? And I know this is, you might think this is a long ways away in August, right? Don't let it creep up on you, right? Now is the time to go and, look at your existing JCL jobs and, your problem doc, load up your utility. Comes along, it's going to go unnoticed, okay?
So far, their live streaming is.
This is just a quick highlight here, right? So in case anybody's not aware, the IBM ZOS Global Mirror, also known as the Extended Remote Copy or XRC, right, is going to be sunset. The last supported release is ZOS 2.5, right? Any new functionality for the asynchronous replication, okay, is going to be developed only for the DAS 8000 Global Mirror. And there's a link here to the ZOS 2.5 preview document that has more information about that. And the last thing I want to highlight here is if you're not already, I don't know how many of you are on Twitter, but if you are, right, you can follow IBM support, and there's a few different hashtags over here that you can follow: IBM support, IBM Z systems, and mainframe. And we've put a few videos out there from our ZOS support team right out on IBM Media Center, and this orange link here, all these things are clickable links in the PDF. It'll take you to the repository. I did one recently for diagnostic data, common issues you can avoid. And Lou Bazzani did a couple of excellent ones out here related to RACF database maintenance and also tips for getting support from IBM. So watch this space in the future because we plan to add, several more videos out here in this space. And that's all I have. Thank you. And if you have any service related concerns, I'll be around all throughout the week. So feel free to track me down, and I won't be hiding.
All right, thank you, John. And I actually opened up a problem with my cable company over Twitter, so I might try doing that with IBM ZOS. All right, let's see if I can get April set up here. Which one's yours? That one. There you go. Oh, and here's your
Thank
clicker.
you.
And here's the microphone.
Oh,
Yeah, that's kind of important.
all right. I'm going to try and stay parked behind this podium, which is hard, I think, not to be able to wander back and forth. But thank you so much. Thank you to Ed for inviting me, and thank you for all of the interests that you have in learning about the mainframe environment. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about BMC survey. So just to start out, we do a survey. And I think as a vendor, the first question people ask is, okay, that's great. Is it all about your customers? And our intention is that it's not. Our intention is that we go out into the market and we are looking for people who own, operate, and run a mainframe to respond. So we have a mix of customers and non-customers. The other thing people ask is, how often do you do this? And what has changed? So this, I'm going to show you the results of our 16th annual survey. We run this in March, and we have the results and analysis done in fall. So we're sitting right now in the start of our 2022. So we'll be going out to market with that and getting that information back, and that would be 2022. So because that's not ready, we're going to do 2021. Now, there's no way to control for the sort of the world changes that were in effect in 2021. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But we do trend our data over the 16 years in order to look at how things have changed year over year, and then in bigger chunks of time. So first of all, in 2021, we had about 1,300 respondents. There's a lot of survey fatigue in the market. I'm sure you get surveys every time you do a support, you get a survey. Every time you talk to a vendor, you get a survey. Every time you book a flight, you get a survey. You're getting calls from, your auto warranty every day, Marriott, timeshare, Hilton, all of it, right? Everybody has survey fatigue. So we go out to the market and we got about 1,300 respondents. And these are different types of people. So we can differentiate between somebody who owns the budget for the mainframe and somebody who runs the mainframe. So there's technical and non-technical personas incorporated in here. We do translate, so it goes out to multiple countries. We have respondents from 21 countries, and we have a cross section of industries. And you can see that it's not only financial services, but a lot of technology companies, a lot of government companies, and respond to this as well. One thing that's always interesting for us is the demographics. So we hear a lot about, and we talk a lot about the workforce, people who operate the mainframe. Who are they? How old are they? How much experience do they have? And so this shows you on the left side the years of experience, and it shows you on the right side the age ranges. Orange is 2020 and blue is 2021. So I would say that we see, if you look at and you listen to our survey results, things that we're going to talk about next, like priorities, 43% of our respondents are 5 years or less tenure. So when you look at your team, your environment, people attending share, know that we have a demographic of people who are early in career with the mainframe. If you look at the age demographic, we hover sort of in that the middle two bars. So that's the first bar is 30 through 49 and then 50 through 64. So you can see this particular survey, we have more respondents who are 50 through 64. So I think that's good to understand the number of respondents, the fact that it's geographically dispersed, and sort of the years of experience and the age as you listen to the rest of the results. So if I had to net it up in one slide, what did we learn? We learned that 2020, because think about it, you're taking the survey in 2021, March. So you're probably thinking a little bit about 2020, still early in the year for 2021, is that there was significant growth in almost all aspects of the mainframe. So there was an increase, 59% of our respondents noted an increase in transaction volume. More than 50% noted an increase in the number of databases, and 55% noted an increase in data volume. So when you look at, is more data being put on the mainframe? Are more transactions being executed against the mainframe? It appears from our respondents that that is the case in the majority of our participants. The other thing that they notice is there's more volatility. So there is more changes being made to database objects. There is more workload volatility. So people are saying, yes, there are more ways that work is coming into the mainframe, and there is an increase in the application and applications changing in and around the mainframe. So really our assessment of this, as we cross-referenced all of the different data, is that there is an increase of activity, volatility, and growth on the mainframe. Now, you might ask, what is the sentiment? And I would say I meet with a number of customers, and some of them have a glowing sentiment about the mainframe and the fact that the mainframe is continuing to grow and attract new workloads. I also meet with executives who are challenged with put the mainframe into the cloud, or we have a cloud first strategy, not a mainframe first strategy. So I think, we're always trying to understand from customers, technical customers, from executive customers, what is the sentiment? And it is very positive. So this is a statistically significant uptick in the positive sentiment around the mainframe. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that, which we will try and uncover. But the technology and innovation that's being delivered on the mainframe, the change in pricing models that are being rolled out, the availability of cloud-based services, the new ways you can connect to the mainframe. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about in that. So we see that. And we differentiate between size of shop. So the next couple of things we sliced out by size of shop, and we have to keep our shop size ranges consistent. Otherwise we can't trend data. So we're 16 years in, so shops have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have an extra large shop, and that's a definition based on MIPS of 50,000 or greater. The large is 10,000 or greater. And I'm sure some of you are sitting in this room thinking, well, we have 200,000. So, 16 years ago, you probably didn't. So, we keep it consistent, looks like we might need to supersize it going forward and get some XXXLs and, et cetera. But extra large shops, so 50K and greater, cite that for almost 3/4 of them, 50% of their corporate data is held on a mainframe. So if you think about the importance and significance as new digital services are created when all of that data is housed and held on the platform. And then the majority of them, 64%, still in that large, so 10,000 and above, extra large, 50,000 and above. So that group together, 64% of them view the platform as one for new growth. Now you might say, okay, how does that translate to MIPS? And so this is a chart, and the green at the top of the chart, so on the left is 2020, on the right is 2021. The green on that chart is growing MIPS. So you can see a statistically significant uptick in the number of respondents whose MIPS are growing. And you can see that that growth really came from that blue section, which is the area of people who had previously been reporting flat. So you can see we're moving up, more growth, less people staying flat, but the people in that decline are about 1/3. So, if you take the flat and growing, you're at about 75% of the market. That is a look back. So we're asking about the previous 12 months. Okay, is anybody surprised by this? Not okay. For those of you on the live stream, not a single person surprised by this. Okay, so what do you think I'm going to say next? What we're going to ask them to look forward. So this was a look back, look forward. What is MIPS growth? So here we are, same chart, 2021. And this is, again, statistically significant. So that special survey terminology, that means we're at the 95% confidence level that this is a significant note. And this is 60%. So you can see, again, strong positive perception about MIPS growth. People are planning to grow. Okay, any surprise by this? Okay, for live stream, no surprises in the room. We've got everybody's got the crystal ball in here. So MIPS are growing. It's generally positive. We see a statistically significant interest in investing in the mainframe. What are the priorities of these people? So we have 1,300 people. We're saying those 1,300 people represent the market at large. And, we look at our data and we ask, what do people care about? And these are the top mainframe priorities. So we ask the question a number of different ways. We let people pick different choices so they can pick their top 3. We do the data analysis and we come up with what are the top. And this, probably not surprising from left to right, top priorities. Security ended up as the number one for about 61%. And when we dug into this, not shown on my slide, we are not talking about, do people feel like they do a good job with RACF and top secret at ACF2? This is really about security in the broader context of security threats like ransomware, security threats like, hey, if our security operations center got notification that something happened on the mainframe, would they be able to respond? Do we have automated response in place that's going to help us, detect and stop a threat? So, security, think of this in the broader context. It's really not about access control. Cost. People are always thinking about cost. I will tell you there is a significantly difference when you're talking about people who are growing and you're talking about people who are flat or declining. The ones who are flat or declining are more worried about cost than those companies that are growing and investing. Still, we see what mainframe conversation would be complete without talking about staffing and skills. So that, of course, makes the top three, although cost has historically been a number one concern. And you can see security with current world events and, all the things going on has trumped that. And then still strong in number four is just application modernization. Are we integrating and evolving our applications as fast as possible? If you look at extra large shops, now these are the big boys in town, so 50K and above, and that might represent many of you in this room. The difference here is you do not see, like I mentioned, cost. It didn't make the top of mind either in the technical or in the executive respondents. What made top of mind is, are we protected against threats? Are we modernizing our applications for the future so that we're not having the no and slow, we're really getting it done? Have we got a handle on our long-term plan for staffing and skills and organizational alignment? And are we doing things in a different way? So our questions around AI and ML were around, how are you managing the mainframe? How are you applying new techniques? And you can see those things came to top. And I just thought that was interesting because, it's a little bit, the bigger you get, the more invested you are by definition. And, while cost, everybody's got to balance their checkbook. Cost is always something you have to think about. We live in a world where nobody's so naive that you have an unlimited budget. However, it is trumped by some of these other things. And then I think it's very worth note that 86% of those shops are increasing in MIPS. So pretty much everybody, 9 out of 10. All right, so when you say, why could this be? What do people view as the strength of the mainframe? And, floating again, these are all sort of in the same range. Security. People believe the mainframe is the most securable platform. And as I flipped through the guide to share session, there's a lot of security sessions on there. And I think it reflects back what people are worried about. People are worried about cyber threats. People are worried about, zero trust. People are worried about the new security approaches, not what you had done before. People are still thinking about the mainframe as a data environment. So, DB2, IMS continue to play a very big part in managing the data. Connection technologies like ZOS are being implemented more widely than ever. People cite the mainframe availability. So, although it's a little worrisome about the APARS, sounds like there are some potentials for non-availability too. So hopefully everybody gets their maintenance on, because we're depending on these strengths. And then new technologies available. People are excited about and believe the new technologies that are being introduced by IBM make a difference and are meaningful. So this one particularly saw a 7% increase year over year, and that is statistically significant. So there's been a lot of innovation and new products being introduced, and that matters when you think about the platform. Now, some enterprises are investing more. So we divided our respondents to the surveys into sort of two camps. And we called them, and I know this is undoubtedly going to offend somebody who finds themselves in this camp, we called them champions and laggards. And we tried to look at people who are growing and investing as what they're doing and what differentiates them to people who are not. And so we use this terminology, champions and laggards. The difference between these two is, are you growing in MIPS? Are you growing in what's happening? And this aligns with, you know, more business services accessing the mainframe, more workload being on the mainframe. You're increasing your investment there. It's a strategic platform for you. And the top, as we looked at before, you know, really the top priorities for these types of companies is security and compliance. Now, the laggards also valued security and compliance, but that was tied with their concern and their prioritization on cost. And this is really about cost optimization or cost cutting. We try and avoid saying that out loud, but it's really about, I need to contract my cost. Now, when you compare these two groups, champions or laggards, you see some differences. So champions are investing, they're growing, they have the transaction volume. So, you know, the reason you're investing is because you've got more transactions than ever hitting your mainframe. They've got more data volume and they've got more databases. And what they're really worried about is their application development velocity. So if you have new services being built and offered to customers, and that is causing growth on your mainframe. The mainframe champions are really worried about how they modernize and increase the speed at which they develop and deliver applications. And I think if you look at the number of DevOps sessions in the share book, this aligns with many of your interests. I saw CI/CD pipelines, I saw all sorts of DevOps sessions, I saw organizational sessions, etc. So this is really for those people looking for growth. Laggards are also seeing transaction volume changes. So it's not that they are not getting more growth on their mainframe. It's not that transactions are not going up. They are. It's just at about half the rate of those champion companies. Now, when we looked at what the champion companies were doing, so that's sort of the effect, right? If we looked at the cause, what are those champion companies doing that's different than the laggards company? There were really three things that were different. So I have 3 slides for that. The first thing that we noticed is that they were investing in people, process, and technology. So they were 2 times more likely to have invested in DevOps and to have captured a return on that. So that's all about application development, speed, and agility, and how you organize around building and releasing applications. They were more likely to have implemented AI ops. So as you think about managing, and this was really an operations use case. So if you think about managing the mainframe and you think about applying new techniques to understand and predict problems or issues, if you think about automating cause analysis, so they were more likely to have looked at and adopted those. And that has a cascading effect of helping them with the low in tenure staffing. They were 2 times more likely to be taking advantage of IBM's academic initiatives. If you haven't checked out the IBM academic initiatives, excellent program, lots and lots of education available at all levels. So they were highly likely to have participated and used those. And then they were more likely to be using and leaning forward into the new technologies. And we ask a lot of questions, which I didn't include here, about what does that mean? Are we talking about containers? Are we talking about integration? Are we talking about, Zowe, whatever it is. So for those of you interested specifically in what technologies, we have a lot more data. So champions are investing. You can see them changing the way they're doing things, application release automation, integration of development and operations, applying new techniques to operations, taking advantage of academic initiatives to onboard and upskill teams. These are characteristics and actions that these groups are taking. They're innovating more. So a third, we always look at, because we are interested in how people are doing application development on the mainframe, we always ask about the different approaches. And one of the questions we ask is if they would self-select as being a shop, an organization that uses DevOps approaches. And right now, just so you know, and you can judge yourself if you're ahead or behind of the curve, a third of organizations indicate that they have DevOps implemented. And they are twice as likely to update applications daily. So, when I started, my tenure on the mainframe is only about 12 years. So I am definitely not a legacy mainframer, although that's a decade now. So I'm starting to get into the club. For me, they want to update more frequently. 88% of them said that daily is not enough. Now, I actually don't talk to that many customers who are updating applications daily. So, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out who these customers are and what they're doing. Now, if you've ever attended a DevOps show, some companies like Etsy do 33 updates per day, or, are updating hourly. So there's a big range, and this ties back to people's risk aversion, right? If you update applications, do I affect what I consider to be one of the 4 greatest things about the mainframe, which is availability, stability, etc. So they claim, and this, is in our statistics, that they are seeing a benefit to their stability by doing multiple small releases, doing shorter increments of releases. And then these same customers show 64% the mainframe attract and grow new workloads. They integrate their system. And I thought this was interesting. Champions are more likely to integrate their security data with their enterprise SIM. So if you've got a security operations center and you've got an enterprise SIM, is your data being integrated there today? They're 2 times more likely to have ZOS Connect in production. Who has ZOS Connect in production today? Just a show of hands. Okay, it can't possibly just be 2 people in our room of 100. Okay, 3. All right, so to our live stream audience, I'm going to tell you it's misrepresented by people willing to put their hand up. And then, a third of those respondents say, hey, the new APIs are important to us. And so these services and APIs being delivered by IBM, and I think really all vendors, are important because that's the way we want to build our interoperation. And then I think this one is always a little bit tricky one. Organizationally, I think there are some challenges and opportunities perhaps in managing the mainframe. I think for a long time, organizationally, people who run and control the mainframe have been, in a group separate from people who maybe ran and managed the cloud or distributed servers, etc. So just one note that we're starting to see, and we'll continue to ask questions and report back to you as a group on what we find. But we're starting to see more and more desire in organizations to bring best practices and groups together at different levels. So the champions are more likely to have started on some of those organizational integrations. Now, you might ask yourself, okay, so what does all of this mean? I didn't feel like that fit the bill for me, so we're maybe not in that camp of champion. Or maybe you're sitting here and thinking, wow, we're amazing. We actually do a lot more than that. And I think, you know, all of us have our strengths and weaknesses in the areas where we're very advanced or areas where we wish we could move a little bit faster. So, you know, as we go and talk to customers, we really see that there's sort of 3 areas people are seeking to understand and do more in. And when I looked at the, you know, the tracks here at Share, this was really a common theme to the programs being run here. I mean, everybody uses their own words. I'm in strategy, so we always try and use market buzzwords. But I think, you know, the heart of it was there. One of them just is security. You cannot put your head in the sand and think that because you are awesome at RACF that you're safe. Okay, it's just not the case. Security has vastly changed. You need to be thinking about zero trust frameworks. You need to be thinking about insider threats. You need to be thinking about all the things, because it's not if you're going to get attacked, it's just when, and you have to know that you can respond. I've talked to clients where, you know, when there was a threat and somebody copied the RACF database, the security operations center got notification of it. They just didn't have a clue what that meant, because it didn't come with a big flashing red light that said, hey, the RACF database is really important. So I think having a dedicated SIM, really making sure you've automated your response to security threats, that's going to be very important for everybody. DevOps, you know, people scoff sometimes when you talk about DevOps and, oh, we're doing Agile and we already know DevOps, and DevOps isn't a thing, it's a culture. But the idea is, if you have and want to grow the mainframe as a strategic platform, when somebody comes and builds a new service or application connected to it, the answer cannot be, we'll get that done in 6 to 9 months, right? The answer cannot be that it's going to take us 6 months to design us and, you know, 19 months to test it. And, you know, we're really known for stability and reliability. That nobody appreciates that response anymore. People expect high degrees of availability and stability and urgency and responsiveness. So DevOps, and this is really about automation and integration, if I had to summarize it. And then AI ops, this is probably the most, and this came out in our survey, that this is the least understood thing. And, you know, we get responses kind of all over the map on AI ops, because people are still struggling to internalize or understand what it means. And I would say a lot of vendors, probably like BMC, waved around the flag of AI ops. Certainly the analysts waved around the flag. And I think, you know, people still question, what does it mean and what can it do for us? So we've tried to really focus in our questions around using new techniques in order to have better operational control over the mainframe. So is it possible, with all the data that you collect about the well-being of the mainframe, that you can take that data into a giant concatenator, and out can it spit earlier detection of problems? And then, because 43% or some percent of your team does not have 5 decades of experience on the mainframe, and they might have 5 years or less, can you automate the root cause for them? So I think if you take a narrow look at how does AI and machine learning operate on the vast amount of data that you have, you can think about AI use cases which are practical. So I'd encourage you there. So this was a whirlwind tour to our mainframe survey. We have an ebook available on our website that you're welcome to download. This presentation deck will be uploaded to the share content portal, so you're able to access that. I will be here for at least a few days, so happy to talk to anybody about it. And if you say, hey, you know what, we'd really like somebody to come and give us some more specific details on this in our industry, or, you know, I would like to show this to my team, or I'd like to show this to my boss, or I need a couple slides to use in a presentation, please let us know. You know, we're happy to help you with that. Thank you.
All right, what an excellent job. And some really, really interesting information there, April. Thank you very much for sharing that. So everyone, please remember to fill out your session evaluations and enjoy the week. Thank you very much.